Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Yeah, very, very much appreciated. I hope we can't see you, so we hope you've got your lunch, so you're maximising your time, eating and listening and asking questions along the way. Unfortunately, you know, with COVID, we've had a few restrictions, so we haven't been able to get out and about with our farmers as much as we would like. So we're trying a webinar for the first time, so bear with us and technology. But yeah, we will go through, we've sort of identified a few subjects that come up quite commonly, which we can talk to, but along the way, please chip in. If anyone's got any questions at any time, yeah, just share them and we'll do our very best to answer them. So thank you, Michael and Karen. We've got two very good experts with us today to also talk to some of these topics. I think the first one that we had on the list, and I know a number of you would have already been through this stage, is transitioning from colostrum. So is there anybody on the line that has a question for us first before we kick into these subjects? No? Jeanette, did you have a question for us?
No, I don't. I've already done it.
Sorry, Jeanette, I can't quite hear you.
No problem. I've already transitioned.
Okay. All right. So let's cover off transitioning from colostrum and transition milk onto ANCAF. Michael, you might want to talk to this also in terms of how, you know, making one change at a time to ensure that calves go through minimal stress. So Michael, did you maybe want to start and then we can talk into the product specifics?
Yeah, sure. I guess the general principle with all calf nutrition is that when you make a change, the slower you can make the change, the less stressful it's going to be on the calves and the less likely you are to have a problem. And you know, there's people often ask for kind of hard and fast rules around how to do transitioning or what should we be, how much should we be feeding at XYZ time. And there is a degree of art to this rather than science, and it's about you know, looking at the calves and getting feedback from them and going, are they coping with the change that you're making? But the more things you change at any one time, the greater the risk that something goes wrong. And the most obvious one is that the calves get diarrhea of some kind. Hopefully, it's just nutritional and not infectious. So, you know, if you're going to transition from colostrum to whole milk, it will be good to do that by way of transition milk. And then if you're going to transition from whole milk to milk powder, try and make the milk powder the same concentration as the whole milk and blend them gradually over a week or 2 weeks, depending on what your milk feeding rate is, and make that transition gradual to reduce the stress on your calves and the chance that they have a problem. And we're not saying you have to do it this way, because you know, this is about risk mitigation. And so, you know, things like we know that feeding cold milk places calves at a higher risk of scouring than warm milk, but it doesn't mean you can't feed cold milk, and lots of people use cold milk or cold milk replace it quite successfully. But best practice from a risk mitigation perspective is you should use warm milk, because it will allow the calf to coagulate the milk in its abomasum more appropriately. So it's a long way of just saying, when you make changes, try and make them as slowly as possible, as practical, to reduce the risk that something goes wrong.
Yeah, so I suppose if we take on a little stage further, and when you're transitioning from colostrum and transition milk to ANCAF, it's good to think through what you're currently doing. So if you're, for example, feeding 6 litres of colostrum in transition milk, if you were to transition, like Michael said, over a period of time, just replacing 1 litre of that colostrum in transition milk with 1 litre of ANCAF. And if you're looking to give the same sort of nutritional content, so not increasing the concentration, you would mix ANCAF at 150 grams to a litre. When you mix ANCAF at 150 grams to a litre, that's giving this similar nutritional content to whole milk. So yeah, whatever you're doing in terms of your current program, just replace 1 litre of your colostrum and transition milk with 1 litre of ANCAF. And then over time, if you want to transition further to a more concentrated feed, yeah, do that as a second stage. But firstly, do 1 step, move to ANCAF, mix at 150 grams to a litre, replace 1 litre with 1 litre, and then over time, if you want to concentrate, you can move up to mixing it at 300 grams to a litre. And that's sort of more of a gradual transition than moving directly from colostrum and transition milk to ANCAF mixed at 300 grams to a litre at the once daily feeding program. And that's probably something else we would say, ideally in an ideal world, it would be nice to be able to feed calves twice a day. I think it's the best for the animal's welfare, and you'll probably get the best results. But what you would see on farm is, you know, there's not always enough time in the day to be able to do that. So, yeah, that's probably what we'd recommend. In terms of the feeding quantities, while we've got Khan on the call, Khan, if you wouldn't mind speaking to this, we've been working with Ag Research over the last few months actually, and we've got a really good series of best practice videos. So if you want to watch any of these are on NZAgbiz.co.nz, and you'll notice that our packaging has changed. We've improved the packaging to show easier mixing instructions. We've also looked at adding in calves' body weight, so it hasn't only got the age, it's got the calves' body weight, because there's obviously quite a variation between what a little Jersey calf would need and what a bigger Frisian calf would need. So the feeding charts now take into all of those considerations, but we have actually been asked because the milk feeding volumes have gone up slightly. So what we need to highlight here is ANCAF and the ANCAF finisher haven't changed in any way. They're still the same great formulations they always have been. The mixing ratios of 150 grams to a litre with twice daily feeding is the same, and 300 grams a litre once daily. So you're just doubling up on the nutrition when you move to once daily. So the calf still gets the same nutritional content for the daily requirements. But the feeding quantities have gone up slightly, and this is based on recent research, probably over the last decade, which does support high milk allowance diets. The gains that you can see through feeding more milk are actually maintained after weaning. That's if you wean well with a step down approach. So Khan, did you want to give us a little bit of a overview of some of the research that's been done and the key findings on that front? Hopefully Khan is still there. Kelly, can you see?
There we go, unmuted.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was unmuted and while I was speaking. Hello, everyone, and hello, Carla and Michael. And I just want to start with a little bit of agreeing with what you have already described, that the change from colostrum to transition milk to milk replacer should be done gradually, and because the calf need time. The gut is a living system, so it secretes enzyme to digest the nutrients. So the nutrient profiles of colostrum, transition milk, and milk replacer are different. So the enzymes that are required to digest those are also different. So that is where if you give a little bit more time, do it gradually, the animal gut will respond and easily start digesting the new feed. So that is my comment on this. Well, we want to talk about the quantity of milk replacer that we can feed to the animal. So look, I mean, I always say the calves are babies. They should be treated like babies, at least for the first 2 months of their life. They rely on milk and the nutrients that drive their needs that are for maintaining their bodies and to grow. And their gut is actually have capability to extract nutrients only from milk or milk replacers. So the response that we are seeing in our research and also the that is published in the scientific literature is that if we feed more nutrients to young animals during the first 2 months, they will respond more. And that will not only that you can see in terms of their growth, but it will also impact the development of key organs. Those are important for the lifetime performance and health of your stock. So, for example, if you're feeding more, it will have a positive effect on growth as well on gut development. We have shown it. So if we're feeding, for example, 4 versus 8 liters of colostrum or milk, or 500 gram versus 1,000 gram. So it is going to affect the gastrointestinal development, the gut of the animal, on which she rely to digest and absorb nutrients from pasture in her later life. Second system that is affected during the first 2 months is a mammary gland, and mammary gland in heifers. So the development of the mammary gland is also impacted positively if you feed more. So that potentially translate into more milk solid yield when they start lactating. We do not have this data in New Zealand. We are working on a couple of lifetime studies, but there's a 13, 14 studies are published from around the world that are showing a positive response. So if you feed more, the animal will have a better gut, it will have a better mammary gland, and it will then have a better milk yield later in life. So the studies that have been published, they're showing a positive response in the first, second, and third lactation of the animal. So when it comes to quantity, look, that depends, that is affected by many factors. So how much I need to feed my calf. So size of the calf is one of the important parameter in there. So in New Zealand, what I can see in the last 7 years of my life in New Zealand, on dairy farms, the calves are like a very little ones, like 30 kg, and there's a pure Holsteins, so they're going more toward 40s, high 40s sometimes. And so when we recommend like the volumes, we say like 10% of the body weight or 20% of the body weight. So that means like somehow we need to come up with an idea, like if you can maybe group some animals that are lightweight versus heavyweight, if you have a crossbred cows, and feed them accordingly. So that's where I can see like NZAgbiz is providing those weights and the amount of milk replacer that you can feed to the calves. So I will encourage to go like toward higher levels of milk powders according to the body weight of the animal.
So just on that point, the feeding guidelines on our bags at the moment versus the weight is based on 13% of a calf's body weight, and that's why we've added the weight to those charts, so you can see how that corresponds to the calf's body weight, the volume in litres.
Yeah, and after 2 months, after 8 weeks, 9 weeks, you can start gradually reducing the milk, and then the animals have started consuming some solid feed or pasture if they're on pasture. So they will that will trigger the rumen development and the reliance on rumen fermentation or fermentation of the pasture and soil feed. It should be done also gradually, but we'll go to that topic. If you have any question, please do ask, and I will try to respond.
Does anyone have any questions for Khan on the volume per feed? I think Khan, there was one trial that was done actually looking at fattening. I think it was called the effect of rearing diet and early post-weaning pasture quality on lifetime growth, meat quality, carcass traits, and it was published in the Livestock Science. I think that was quite a good trial too, because it was looking at the 7-month mark, the gain that had been made by the high milk allowance was actually maintained, wasn't it? So the gap that you saw at weaning, feeding the high milk allowance, was actually maintained at the 7-month mark too, wasn't it? So if you wean well with that step down approach, the gains that you can be made with the high milk allowance can be maintained.
So look, I mean, first of all, like there's a window of opportunity, because as I said, like these in calves, gut, mammary gland, they're very sensitive to nutrient signals when the animals are young. Okay, so you can take the advantage of that to promote the development. You lost that advantage when the animals are like after 2-3 months old. You can't go back, and there will be compensatory growth. You might see the animal is growing, but those specific systems are already compromised somehow in those animals. In this specific study that you referred to, Carla, there was a dairy beef study. In that study, what we did, I just want to explain quickly. We put the animals on low and high amount of milk. That was a 4 versus 8 liter, a milk replacer. And then we split the animals onto high and low quality pasture after weaning. Yeah, so there was a 4 treatments. So what we are seeing in there, if you feed, what we have demonstrated in our system with dairy beef animals, that if you feed your animal well, in that case, 8 liters of milk replacer, I don't remember on the top of my head, but I think it will be 800 gram to 1,000 gram of milk powder that was going into those animals for the first 2 months, and then you gradually wean them on a high quality pasture that was irrigated pasture. Basically, the trial was done in Pukawa. What it do is not only 7 months they will maintain the weight, they will also maintain the weight. They will finish earlier. So they finish earlier, and that give a lot of economic benefit. We have another paper where we have also done some economic calculations. And also, it is good for the environment because they will produce less excretion of nutrients and waste to the environment. So we have also shown those benefits as well. So there's a benefit, a total package, if you feed your animal well during the pre-weaning period. That means like provide more nutrients through milk replacer, and then wean them properly on a good quality feed for the next 2-3 months. So you will achieve the targets that you want, like the finishing age in dairy beef animals and the breeding weight in your dairy heifers.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Khan. I think the key thing here is what we are seeing is that with the high milk allowance, the gains that can be made not only through growth, but through the development of the gut and the mammary glands, setting you up for the future. And I think in one of your videos, Khan, with Michael, you say, feeding milk, as in, a whole milk or calf milk replacer, should actually be seen as an investment, not an expense. And I think that's quite a good way of putting it. But is there anyone here that has any further questions on this topic before we move on? I'm just quite mindful of time.
Any question? We really wanted questions.
Everybody
Because
is
it's not a
try,
one way.
can.
It's not a one way kind of like what we know in science and what is published, but we really also want to learn your experience and really it's a discussion forum, it's a webinar, it's a two-way communication. So please
Somebody's
contribute.
waving there, Kelly. Do you know who's waving? Are they trying to let us know they want to speak, or?
Hi, just got a question.
Yes.
So in regards to transitioning, I've transitioned my last pen over 3 days to milk powder. What do you do in the what's best practice to do in the event that they get nutritional scours from it, the transition?
Michael.
So if there's a scours during transition, this was a question.
Yeah, so what's the best practice? So we transition them over 3 days from milk till milk powder. And unfortunately, I've got a couple that have got nutritional scours. I'm just wondering, apart from feeding them electrolytes, which we're doing, what how can I avoid this? And when you say to slowly transition, what do you mean?
So having 2 with a nutritional scale is probably not too bad in the scheme of things, but if you're worried that the transition is what's caused it, then slow the transition down. So instead of doing it over 3 days, try and do it over 4 days. As long as the calves are bright and still drinking, then a nutritional scour usually doesn't progress any further, but it does put them at risk of maldigestion and a risk of kind of bacterial fermentation of that milk protein within the intestine, which is not where it would normally occur, and that sets them up potentially for a bacterial, gut bacterial imbalance, which again increases the risk of a bacterial scour. So electrolytes are good to replace any electrolytes that are lost through the scour, but you do still need to keep them on milk because electrolytes just don't have as much energy in them as milk does, and the risk here is that you actually start to starve the calf, and anytime they have a growth check, it's very hard for them to catch back up again. So I hope your calves are doing all right now and that they're bright. That's probably the main thing, is if they're bright and drinking, keep feeding them. If you're worried they're scouring so much they're getting dehydrated, then add electrolytes. And then if it gets worse, so blood is probably your number one concern in a scour. If you see that, then that's probably when you start to think about, do we need to give them some sort of medicated treatment.
Does that answer your question, Alicia?
Yeah, I just had a few problems with them transitioning, so
Maybe probably on that one. Sorry.
Start by trying to slow the transition down and just seeing if that makes a difference. And double checking your mixing rates and your all the other things. So things like going from warm to cold, stuff like that. It's all about risk mitigation, and so none of these things are good or bad in and of themselves that we're talking about. It's just saying if you do the X management practice, then this is how it affects the risk that you're going to have a problem. And doesn't mean you're going to have a problem, but it means that you're more likely to.
Alicia, it might also be, are you transitioning from, this might come back to the earlier conversation, are you transitioning from the same amount of liquid to the same amount of liquid mixed at 150 grams to a litre, or how are you transitioning at this stage?
So the litres that they're on is the same they're on from milk. So what I first did for the first 3 days was half and half. Milk, half the volume of milk powder and water, so half the amount.
Yeah.
And then after that, I took away the milk, and they were on the milk powder at a slightly less than full rate, and I've been working that up. But I've still
Are
had
you
problems.
mixing at 150 grams to a litre, Alicia?
What does that work out to be?
Yeah, because that's the sort of same concentration as what you'll be getting from, say, whole milk. So you'll be just replacing 1 litre with 1 litre. I think where some people have struggled to transition is when they actually at the same time as replacing the transitional colostrum, they've actually been on a once daily feeding program, so they're actually been replacing at 300 grams to a litre, which is actually increasing the concentration at the same time. So what we were saying is actually try and do 1 change at a time. So take 1 litre of your colostrum and transition milk out and replace it with 1 litre of ewe and calf mixed at 150 grams to a litre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. All right. Shall we, was there another question from anybody, or should we move along?
I think you're on mute, Michael.
Sorry, I was talking to Paige.
Oh.
All right, so the next topic we had was actually mixing milk powder, and that's probably a fairly quick one that we can cover off. But if anyone has any questions on this topic, please do ask away. I think the most common thing that we come across is that, and this has been partly our own doing, it hasn't been really clear on our packaging until recently actually how to mix ewe and calf. The key is to put in half the volume. So say you're making up a full bag. A full bag, when you're mixing it 150 grams to a litre, makes 133 litres. So put in half the volume of water, so roughly 65 litres of water. It can be a little bit warmer, not too warm, because you don't want to denature any of the protein. Put in your milk powder, mix it. Some people use drills, some people use whisks, whatever mixing apparatus you have, and then top it up to your 133 litres and then remix. And you'll find when you do it like that, it's very simple to mix. Try and ensure that the temperature is around 38 degrees when you feed it to the calves. I think Michael's already talked to the fact that that's where you get the optimal results. Also, you don't want calves to use any energy to warm back up and feeding cold milk, but also it impacts the CMR's ability to be able to curd and slowly release the nutrition back to the calf how it was meant to, so it can fully utilise all the nutrition from the milk or the milk replacer. Maybe we will, because I'm quite conscious of time, while we've got Khan on the line, let's move on. We're going to jump a couple of topics and talk about weaning, because that is sort of around the corner for some people. So Khan, did you want to talk to sort of best practice on weaning, especially when you are feeding those high milk allowance diets, the gains that you make, how you can maintain them with a step down approach?
Okay, so I will start like a weaning is everybody knows like it. To me, if we define weaning as a transitioning and an interesting phase for the calf, it's a interesting transition from physiological perspective. I mean, biologically, there's a lot of changes that is going on in the animal. It's just not the diet that you shift it from milk that is for babies, is a good quality, high quality protein and nutrients, to a pasture or pellet. A lot change in the animal. So a good rule of thumb, like do it after 8 weeks. So can start doing it, reducing the milk when your calves are around 8-9 weeks. Do it slowly or gradually if you're feeding higher amounts, especially if you're going toward like 20% of the body weight of the animal, you are feeding more than 800, 900 grams milk powder per day. Cut it back slowly. So what it'll do is slowly, it will encourage the calf to eat more solid feed. There could be pellets and pasture or hay, and try to provide a variety of solid feeds. So don't like just put a crappy hay in front of the animal. Do provide a good quality pasture. If there's a parasite free or something like that, good paddocks. If you can dedicate to your young stock, and the pellets as well. So the reducing the amount will encourage the animal to eat the solid feed, and then when it goes into the rumen, it will provide the chemical or mechanical stimulus to develop the rumen. So if you do it like over 2 weeks, just cutting back, maybe you can do a linear type program, like you're reducing maybe 1,500 grams every day, and then achieve it like over 10, 14 days, or you can also do a more stepwise approach that where you can say like, okay, I'm going to reduce 25%, and then I will, after 2-3 days, I will again do it another 25%, and then goes to like after 2 weeks, you will be switching your animals from that milk feed to solid feed. After you wean the calf, please provide again a good quality of solid feeds. Again, as I said, like the pasture or paddock, a good quality, have like good grass cover and so on. Because the animals still needs, because it's coming from, now you're pulling the milk from her that is providing the nourishment to the animal. Now she has to change and adapt internally that we cannot see visually, but there's a lot happening in her stomach or with her intestine and cells. So she needs a good feed. So for the next 2-3 months. So if you can do it, maybe some people, it's a good practice to provide, like for example, for a month after weaning, some pellets. You can restrict the pellets, maybe like to 1 or 2 kilo, depending on your what pasture is available. So if you're seeing them growing, great. Then they can, after like 4 months, when they start stabilizing internally, then they will be good for the pasture.
Great, thank you, Can.
I love. Sorry, Carla. I really love to ask people to ask questions.
Yes, and, please ask. Yes,
or share your experience also. Share your experience. Like, I mean, what is good? What is that where we can learn as well.
Something to be conscious of around weaning is that it often happens at a time when pasture quality is about to decline. And so maybe not quite at weaning, but shortly after weaning, you end up with this sort of dry summer grass, which isn't actually hugely nutritional for young calves' digestive tracts. And so it's also, I would say, worth keeping an eye on them, because if you've got, young calves, 6 months old sort of thing, and their growth rate starts slowing because the summer pasture is falling away in quality, then it may actually be worth putting them back on to meal, or doing something to make sure that they're still getting good nutrition.
Mike, it's Nick here from Farm Source in Hamilton. So when we talk about that, then maintaining on a 20% meal as we're at weaning, what's your view on 20% over 16%? Or Khan, do you have a view on this?
20%.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
With a lot of this stuff, it's an economic thing. Why do you choose one milk powder over another milk powder over whole milk? It's about money. It's not necessarily about what's best for the animal. Why do you choose one meal over another? It's what you can get away with. It's not necessarily what's best for them. Yeah, I would always say go with the higher protein meal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Karen, just to elaborate, so on the step down approach, so you're feeding your calf 8 litres per day. Would you, I think this is what you were recommending, you'd reduce 2 litres per week over the course of 4 weeks. Is that correct?
That is the best. That is the best approach. Like you give in nature, if you see like the animals, like cow-calf system. So where the cow in beef system, cow-calf beef system, where the calves are with their mothers, they take a lot of time, like a 4 or 5 months before they are weaned. I mean, these are in artificial rearing system. We, because of the labor and everything, and we know like we don't have time. We try to do it early. We try to do it faster. So yeah, so I would say like that is the best. If you can implement the gradual weaning and bring your animal from 8-10 liters over the course of a month to 0, that is the best.
Yeah.
But the minimum is
And,
the 2
and we're
weeks.
not saying, we're not saying you have to do it over 4 weeks. But I think what's important is that people understand what best practice is, and then when you look at your system, because everyone's got a different system, you go, okay, what compromises am I making here? And if you want to wean the calves over 2 weeks, okay, do that, but be conscious of the risk that you're taking there.
Great, thanks, Karen and Michael. Was there any other questions on weaning from the team, from all the people on the call?
Carla, I have to leave for another meeting.
Okay.
I will join again, and hopefully we will continue this these type of sessions where we can really
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time,
talk to
Karen.
folks. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Yeah.
I think we've got another 10 minutes if people have any further questions. Another question that has come up recently is the Coccistop coverage. I think on the bag maybe there's some confusion. So I just want to highlight first and foremost the coccidiostat that is in ANCAF is called Coccistop, and the active ingredient is decocchinate. The inclusion rate of Coccistop in ANCAF is 0.5 grams per kg. And the dosing program that we use is the preventative program. So if a calf is 100 kgs, they need 0.5 grams of Coccistop. So that's at the highest end of the spectrum, obviously. So if they're 50 kgs, they need 0.25 grams of Coccistop. But if you're feeding 1,000 grams of ANCAF, you will be getting coverage right up until the calf is 100 kgs at a preventative dose. Is there any, hopefully that's clarified it if anyone's had any confusion on that front, but has anyone got any other questions on that one? Because otherwise we can move on to health challenges while we've got Michael on the...
Can I make a comment about the coccidiosis as well?
Yes.
I guess the time that most people see coccidia issues is around that weaning time, weaning off milk or weaning off meal. And one of the things you need to check if you are expecting protection, some degree of protection from your milk or from your meal, is as you wean, you will actually, at some point, you will reduce that dose of the coccidiostat below the protective requirement. And so you have to look at what's the total dose that my animals are getting. It might not be enough. Even you might kind of think in your head, oh yeah, I'm giving them meal with a coccidiostat in it. But if they're only eating half a kilo, then they're probably not getting enough to have an effect.
Yeah.
Just
And
one more thing to think
the
about.
other point that we should note is calf users do coccinite, some of the meals actually have a different ionophore, so they don't double up on effects, they have different mode of action, so you need the full coverage of one or the other. Yeah, so health challenges, shall we move on to that? Michael, was there any sort of key topics you wanted to cover on calf health, or shall we open up and ask if there's any questions that people have on calf health?
Yeah, I mean, probably the number one health problem is scours, and that's, you know, by far and away the biggest problem, and then other things are much less significant. So, but they're often more interesting. So if anyone does have any weird and wonderful health conditions they want to ask about, that would be fun to talk about.
Actually, while we're waiting for someone to have courage to ask, Michael, what would you recommend if someone was having difficulty with scours? What would be the process that you would suggest they go through?
Testing. So scours is a non, just diarrhea is a non-specific sign of there's something in the animal's body that it doesn't want to be there, and it's trying to kind of get rid of it. And so it's always good to know what's causing the problem, because that is going to determine how you treat it. And there's probably half a dozen common infectious causes of scours, and they've all got different treatments. And so it's easy to waste your time potentially treating something the wrong way, with something that's not going to work. And I guess the other thing is that most scours, assuming the animal is well supported with fluids, they do self-resolve. So the reason why you would treat with a medication is to get it to resolve faster, because that reduces the degree of growth check or the risk period that the animal is at risk for getting secondary or tertiary infection on top of what it's already got. But the most important thing is that fluid support, stopping them from getting dehydrated. The thing that kills young animals with diarrhea is dehydration, much more than any of the other aspects of the disease.
Great, thank you, Michael. Well, I think actually our time is up, but if anyone has any questions, please ask. If you need to get in contact with us, go to NZAgbiz.co.nz, and all our contact information is on there. So please, ask at any point if you've got questions, we can close off with a couple of questions now if anyone has any. No, it looks like everybody's shy on this call.
Too easy, yeah.
Well, firstly, thank you to everybody that's come along today. We will aim to run regular sessions like this. I know we're getting towards the end of this season, but next year's another big year. So, hopefully we'll have a full schedule of them for next year. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.